Welcome to our deep dive on how domestic conflicts can endanger the status of legal permanent residents in the United States. In this video, we will explain why green card status is not absolute, how certain criminal allegations, especially around domestic violence and restraining order violations, can trigger deportation, and what immediate steps an LPR should consider. Next, let us set the stage with a quick agenda.
In this agenda, we will cover why permanent residency does not protect against removal, the special risks tied to restraining order violations, the difference between crimes involving moral turpitude and aggravated felonies, the typical process timeline, concrete action steps, myths about green card renewal, the policy emphasis on safety over financial dependency, and finally summarize key takeaways with quizzes to reinforce learning. Next, because we're covering legal topics, we will provide a brief disclaimer.
This content is educational and not legal advice. Every case depends on individual facts, local law, and evolving federal immigration rules. If you are facing charges or an investigation, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction,
Preferably someone experienced in the overlap of criminal and immigration law.
Next, let us begin with the core principle. Green card benefits are significant, but conditional.
Permanent residency confers numerous rights, but those rights are conditional upon good conduct. Certain criminal convictions can result in deportation, even if the sentence is short or suspended. Domestic violence-related offenses are particularly dangerous in immigration analysis. Federal classifications like crimes involving moral turpitude and aggravated felonies determine deportability and eligibility for relief. Importantly, removal proceedings may begin as soon as DHS becomes aware of a qualifying conviction. They do not depend on the physical card's renewal date. Next, we will visualize common deportability pathways with a flowchart. This flowchart maps the common pathways from a domestic incident to immigration consequences. It starts with an allegation and asks whether a protective or restraining order exists. If so, violating it often escalates risk because certain jurisdictions treat violations as crimes involving domestic violence. The next decision point is whether criminal charges are filed and, if so, which specific statute is implicated. From there, outcomes branch based on the resulting plea or conviction. We highlight the important sentencing threshold where 1 year, 365 days can trigger aggravated felony consequences in some contexts, while 364 days may avoid that category. The end states reflect elevated removal risk or lower risk, emphasizing that exact outcomes depend on the statute elements, the jurisdiction, and the specific facts. Next, we will focus on restraining order violations and why they are especially dangerous for LPRs. Violating a protective or restraining order is often interpreted as a domestic violence-related offense. A conviction for such a violation can render a non-citizen deportable, even without a lengthy sentence or aggravated felony designation. Once a qualifying conviction occurs, DHS can initiate removal proceedings based on the federal immigration consequences tied to that offense. Because these cases often hinge on specific facts and evidence, careful handling of documentation and strict compliance with court orders are essential. Next, we will compare crimes involving moral turpitude with aggravated felonies to understand how each category impacts immigration status. Crimes involving moral turpitude refer to offenses that involve inherently base or depraved conduct. Whether a statute qualifies as a CMT often depends on its elements. Deportability can hinge on factors like the timing since admission and whether there are multiple offenses. By contrast, aggravated felonies are a federal category that includes a broad range of offenses. A single qualifying aggravated felony conviction can make removal essentially mandatory and foreclose most avenues for relief. The 1-year sentence threshold, even if suspended, is critical for determining whether certain crimes of violence fall within the aggravated felony definition. Next, let us map the typical timeline from arrest to potential removal proceedings. This timeline shows the progression from the initial incident to potential removal. Following an arrest, there may be a protective order. Charges are filed, and the defendant appears for arraignment. Plea negotiations should involve counsel experienced in both criminal and immigration law to avoid immigration disqualifying outcomes. If a conviction occurs, DHS may learn of it and issue a notice to appear, initiating immigration court proceedings. The case then proceeds to master calendar and individual hearings, culminating in a decision that could result in a removal order or, in some cases, relief. Bond and custody considerations may arise at multiple points. Next, we will shift to practical steps you should consider immediately if you are charged.
If you are an LPR who has been charged, Remain calm and do not make statements about the incident without your attorney present. Request counsel and refrain from discussing facts until represented. Engage a crimmigration specialist as early as possible so both criminal and immigration strategies are coordinated. Do not enter any plea until the immigration consequences have been analyzed. Preserve all relevant evidence legally and comply fully with court orders, especially any no-contact provisions. Work with counsel to explore alternative pleas or dispositions that may avoid deportable offenses. Pay close attention to the sentencing length, as a single day can change the immigration classification. Next, we will review a reference table that outlines common charges and their typical immigration implications. This table provides a high-level snapshot of selected offenses and their usual immigration implications. Protective order violations are often linked to domestic violence categories and can be deportable without a significant sentence. False imprisonment can be categorized as a crime involving moral turpitude or a crime of violence, depending on statutory elements, and may trigger aggravated felony treatment if a 1-year sentence applies. Terroristic threats often count as a moral turpitude offense and may also qualify as a crime of violence depending on the statute. Simple assault varies widely. Some statutes do not qualify as moral turpitude. Disorderly conduct is often not a deportable offense and can represent a safer plea, subject to the specific statute. Always verify the exact statutory language and controlling case law in your jurisdiction. Next, let us drill into the sentencing trap that often surprises defendants. This table provides a high-level snapshot of selected offenses and their usual immigration implications. Protective order violations are often linked to domestic violence categories and can be deportable without a significant sentence. False imprisonment can be categorized as a crime involving moral turpitude or a crime of violence, depending on statutory elements, and may trigger aggravated felony treatment if a 1-year sentence applies. Terroristic threats often count as a moral turpitude offense and may also qualify as a crime of violence depending on the statute. Simple assault varies widely. Some statutes do not qualify as moral turpitude. Disorderly conduct is often not a deportable offense and can represent a safer plea, subject to the specific statute. Always verify the exact statutory language and controlling case law in your jurisdiction. Next, let us drill into the sentencing trap that often surprises defendants. Question: if an LPR is convicted of violating a restraining order related to a domestic situation, which statement is most accurate? Options: A. It cannot cause deportation unless the sentence is over 1 year. B. It is often treated as a deportable domestic violence offense, even without a long sentence. C. It only matters at green card renewal time. D. It is never a problem for immigration status. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is that restraining order violations are often treated as deportable domestic violence offenses, even without a lengthy sentence. This reflects how immigration law can attach deportability to the offense category itself, rather than requiring a long jail term. Next, we will look at a second question about the green card renewal myth. Question: true or false? Deportation risk only arises when your physical green card is up for renewal. Options: true or false. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is false. Deportation proceedings can begin whenever DHS becomes aware of a qualifying conviction, independent of the card's renewal date. Next, we will visualize how stakeholders and priorities interact in these cases. This mind map shows the competing considerations. On one side, public safety emphasizes victim protection, strict enforcement of orders, and removal when a non-citizen poses a danger. On the other side, families may face loss of income and community disruption, yet child support obligations remain. The legal system encompasses both criminal and immigration courts, as well as DHS. Defense strategy attempts to reconcile these pressures by involving crimmigration counsel, seeking non-deportable pleas, and managing sentences to avoid aggravated felony classifications. Next, we will quickly clarify the green card renewal myth with a concise reminder. Removal does not wait for a card renewal date. Proceedings can begin once DHS is aware of a qualifying conviction. The physical card's expiration timeline is irrelevant to removal timing. The best protection is early, informed legal strategy, and strict compliance with all court orders. Next, we will add an illustrative pie diagram to summarize risk categories at a glance. This pie chart is a conceptual illustration, not legal advice. It highlights how restraining order violations can represent a significant slice of risk for LPRs, with additional exposure from moral turpitude and aggravated felony classifications. Process delays and other case-specific factors also contribute. Actual distributions depend on jurisdiction, statute elements, evidence, and defense strategy. Next, we will consolidate key takeaways you should remember. Key points include the conditional nature of permanent residency, the heightened danger of restraining order violations, the importance of distinguishing between moral turpitude crimes and aggravated felonies, the critical 364 versus 365-day sentencing line, the need to retain crimmigration counsel prior to any plea, the fact that removal does not hinge on renewal timing, and the legal system's emphasis on public safety over financial dependency. Next, let us conclude and prompt you to engage. In summary, permanent residency is powerful but conditional. Domestic conflict allegations and resulting convictions can rapidly alter your immigration landscape. Early engagement with specialized counsel can materially affect outcomes. Policy frameworks prioritize safety, and timely, informed action is essential. Finally, we will close with a thank you and an invitation to continue the conversation. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tell us your thoughts and questions in the comments so we can cover more topics that matter to you.